You've probably already heard by now that the CBC has handed out big bonuses yet again this year. This was after elected members of Parliament on the Heritage Committee on Parliament Hill said it would be inappropriate for the state broadcaster to hand out bonuses. Why? Well, because, of course, taxpayers who foot their bills are struggling. And also because the CBC's viewership is plummeting. Last we were able to see, they have a market share of less than 3% for primetime viewing. Put another way, that means around 97% of Canadians are choosing to not watch the CBC during primetime. Even worse, their supper hour newscast, the 6 o'clock news, it apparently has around 1% of Canadians watching it. So, people aren't watching the CBC, but we're sure paying for it. As you've probably heard, the CBC handed out bonuses this year, costing about $18.4 million. Now, to put that into perspective, just the executive bonuses that were handed out at the CBC this year totaled more than $70,000 per suit. As the Canadian Press reported, that's more than the take-home pay, the after-tax take-home pay of the average Canadian family. Again, that's just the bonus money just handed out to CBC executives this year. If you take a look at the CBC CEO, Catherine Tate, she was the one that was grilled at the parliamentary committee. She's the one that wouldn't say how many people are actually using their online services. She's the one that quibbled about whether or not people are still watching the CBC. She's also the one who refused to say whether or not they were going to hand out bonuses this year.
I'm just curious about something. I'm going to presume no bonuses this year. I mean, the Canadian Taxpayer Federation said a Freedom of Information request showed 16 million were paid in bonuses in 2022. Can we establish that that is not happening this year?
It's too early to say where we are for this year. We'll be looking at that like we do all our line items in the coming months.
So there's a chance bonuses could still happen at a time when jobs are being cut?
I'm not going to comment on something that hasn't been discussed at this point. So,
survey says they did, and you're paying for it. The CEO of the CBC is paid somewhere in the range of $400-something thousand per year, all the way up to close to $600,000 per year, and with a bonus of more than 20%. Let's look at some more numbers. The big ticket for the CBC is that it costs taxpayers this year $1.4 billion. $1.4 billion. What kind of money is that really? Well, big ticket, you could build a really good hospital every year for that amount of money. For $1.4 billion, that would instead cover the salaries of 7,000 carpenters and 7,000 paramedics every year for what we pay for the CBC. For $1.4 billion, you could buy about 3,000 houses just here in Alberta per year. That would even cover the cost of the grocery bill for a family of 4 for more than 80,000 Canadian families. I know, it's an astonishing amount of money that we pay for the CBC. So now keep in mind, they take this huge amount of money per year, $1.4 billion per year. Their ratings are just circling the drain. People aren't watching the CBC. And they're tone deaf when it comes to optics. They still handed out big fat bonuses, including to their executive suite this year, even though they were told directly by members of Parliament it would be inappropriate to do so. Oh, and one more thing before we go. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation has been digging around on what would be a sunshine list for the CBC. That means how many employees are paid more than $100,000 at the state broadcaster. Through access to information records, we've determined that more than 1,400 employees at the CBC would land on that sunshine list. How much of an increase is that under the Trudeau government? More than 230%. Yeah. So since 2015, since the Trudeau government took power, the sunshine list at the CBC has ballooned by more than 230%. And you, my friend, are paying for it.